My name is John DeMiranda. I want to talk about tobacco harm reduction and the climate in the United States of America. Championing harm reduction strategies in the U.S. has always been a challenging activity. Tobacco harm reduction in particular faces a monolithic tobacco control space where safer nicotine products are demonized and advocates marginalized. A couple of examples. On a recent webcast where I was listening to a presentation about the importance of tobacco cessation for persons in recovery from addiction, the moderator took a swipe by making the claim that tobacco harm reduction was a sham. Similarly, on a number of virtual forums that I've been on, trying to ask a question about tobacco harm reduction or safer nicotine products has always fell on deaf ears. One way to measure federal drug policy in the United States is by watching the Office for National Drug Control Policy, the so-called Drug Czar's office. Up until the Obama administration, this position had always been filled by either a police chief or a general. Obama broke that tradition by appointing a person from the public health community who was a person in long-term recovery as well as being an openly gay man. So we're heartened by the fact that Biden has chosen as an interim ONDCP director a person who is really amenable to and supportive of harm reduction, and that bodes well for the future. During the course of my career in the alcohol and drug problems field, I have observed, studied, and taught about the power of words to clarify, obscure, or demonize both practices and people. 30 years ago, I learned the hard way that suggesting that my colleagues listen to, rather than reject, criticisms from the harm reduction community would have me labeled a drug legalizer. Some time ago, I wrote an opinion piece titled Dirty Words, Smoker, Vapor, Harm Reductionist. In the article, I expressed my frustration that in government and the NGO leadership circles, publicly embracing harm reduction policy in the United States was still politically dangerous. Unfortunately, demonization of smokers, vapors, or clean needle exchange programs is more likely to resonate with the public than nuanced discussions of proportional risk or the benefits of tobacco harm reduction strategies. A little while ago, I was asked to write a blog for the Nicotine Science and Policy website about some of these changes and observations, and I'd like to share some of that with you. Well, the situation has been bad for a long time, but we may be in the middle of a sea change. As they say, elections have consequences, and the Biden administration has sent an unmistakable signal that harm reduction policy will be a priority. According to statute, during the start of the new administration, the president's drug policy priorities must be submitted to the U.S. Congress. Priority 3 of 7 reads, enhancing evidence-based harm reduction efforts. Supporting research on the effectiveness of emerging harm reduction practices in real-world settings. And a priority of advancing racial equity indicates a sea change is underway. As a 45-year observer and advocate, I cannot remember the term harm reduction appearing in any official pronouncement from senior governmental leadership within the substance use disorders. Even prior to the new administration, there were some indications that the sea change was underway at the Food and Drug Administration. The first iteration of this policy change involved 8 Swedish Match USA Inc. snus smokeless tobacco products sold under the General brand. The action authorized the manufacturer to market these specific products with the claim, quote, using General snus instead of cigarettes puts you at a lower risk of mouth cancer, heart disease, lung cancer, stroke, emphysema, and chronic bronchitis. Subsequent authorizations of modified risk reduced exposure claims have been granted to Philip Morris for the IQOS system and allows the claim, quote, scientific studies have shown that switching completely from conventional cigarettes to the IQOS system significantly reduces your body's exposure to harmful or potentially harmful chemicals. So tobacco harm reduction and harm reduction in general in the United States seems to be entering a new phase. In the Biden administration, harm reduction is no longer a dirty word. Instead, by embracing and promoting harm reduction as a policy priority, the Biden administration has taken decisive action to support harm reduction tools and approaches that will improve the health of U.S. citizens. As my colleague Tom Horvath put it to me, might the U.S. someday be among the world's leaders in resolving addictive problems rather than in having them?